Hello everyone, welcome to the GeoEcologist. I am Dr. Krishnanand and you have been watching my videos on various topics of geography, environment, research methodology on my channel. In this session on economic geography, we are going to learn about the third important pillar of economy, that is the service sector, or we say tertiary economic activities. And not just tertiary, but also we are going to look into the quaternary and quinary activities at the end of the lecture. So watch the video till the end, and before we go ahead, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and do share the videos with others as well. So now, before we go into the explanation of these various activities under tertiary activities in economy, let's listen to these statements first. What does it say? The first statement is, when you fall ill or sick, you go to a family doctor, right? And what happens when you call a doctor? He gives you his medical service, right? Sometimes your parent takes you to hospital for treatment where you get the medical services. Then second statement tells you, while you are in school, college, or if you're preparing for civil services, doing some coaching, right? I also take classes for civil services examination. That's why I know this, that this is also a service. Teaching is a service, right? So in the event of any dispute or legal problem or legal opinion that you have, you need a lawyer who also gives you a legal service, right? Then comes many other professionals who provide you these services against payment of a given fee, right? So what are these activities? These are various kinds of activities that, if you observe, health, education, law and governance, recreation, remember tourism activities as well, right? So they require professional skill sets, and for which you pay, right? So payment is for the skill here. So what happens here? These services require theoretical knowledge and also the practical training. It means the expertise is needed here, right? So if you want to consult an expert in these arena, they will help you and they'll charge you some amount of fee, right? That's how this business run. So manpower, that is what we say is the most important component of this particular industry, which is basically what we say is service sector of economy or the tertiary sector of economy, right? So now let's learn further that tertiary sector of economy, as we know, also known by the service sector of economy, right? It is the third pillar of economy, or we say third concept of the three economic sectors, that is three sector theory, right? So also known as the economic cycle in which we study these three sector theory. So the service sector consists of the production of services, right, instead of end product. So we don't have an actual end product, right? What do we have is the services here in this sector. So services are also known as intangible goods. Those goods which are not tangible, which are not there in physical space, right? They are just intangible. They are abstract in nature, right? So they include attention, advice, access, experience, effective labor, right? Consultation that we say. These are services of intangible nature, right? So the production of information has been regarded as the service, right? And this is very important here to understand. So now after learning these things, I'm sure you know what is tertiary activities in economy now, right? So case study today we are going to do is trade and commerce and also transport sectors of economy, which fall under the tertiary activities. And also at the end, quaternary activities and quinary activities we are going to discuss. So watch the video till the end to learn about these concepts as well. So now let's learn from tertiary activities, because where both production and exchange happens, right? So the production involves what? Provision of these services which are consumed by the consumers, right? Suppose if you are taking admission in some college and the teachers are teaching you, this is kind of a teaching service, right? That we learned as an example. So output is indirectly measured in terms of wages and salaries. Now when you work in service industry, it is not about that a physical good has to be transported. What is it? The service has to be provided and salaries will be based on the quality of the services, right? So wages will be determined by the quality of the service that is provided. So if you observe, this is product's life cycle here in this image. And what you observe? Raw material extraction, manufacturing, production, transportation, utilization, disposal. Where do you find the tertiary activity or the service activity? At every level in between. right? There are people involved who provide services. So what you observe, the tertiary sector covers a wide range of activities if you observe. For example, what kind of activities? Administration, transport, financial, real estate activities, businesses, personal services, education, health, social work, and you can keep adding to this list. I'm sure you know many more than this, these kind of services, right? So basic idea is 2-point idea of this service sector, and it comprises of, first one is the market oriented services, market service sector. And what is it? Trade, transport, financial operations, business services, personal services, accommodation, travel, food, right? Real estate, information communication. All these are the first kind of market service sector. And the second one is non-market ones. What are the non-market ones? Public administration, education, human health, social work activities. These are under non-market sector, right? These are of a different level of services that you get, which is very important and needs very much expertise in this sector, right? So what you observe, the perimeter of tertiary sector is therefore defined by its complementarity. What does it mean? It means it is a complementary of the other two sectors, the primary and the secondary sectors combined together, right? So with agricultural and industrial activity, if you combine, then comes the tertiary sector, right? The services that is there. So primary and secondary sector are as important in order to facilitate or create the tertiary sector, right? Simply tertiary sector cannot exist in isolation. That is what it means by the complementarity fact, right? Now look into this particular image here coming from NCERT. You must have studied this. So tertiary activities, Quaternary activities and Quinary activities are the three activities under service sector, or we say tertiary sector. So tertiary activities, for example, trade and commerce, transport, communication, services. Then quaternary activities have information based services, research and development services. Quinary activities, specialization, decision making, communications and consultants, right? And then policy formulators, right? So these are the quinary ones, the last stage, the bigger ones, the decision makers, right? So under which you have several of them here, which is here in this diagram. You can pause the video and also learn from NCERT if you have already, right? Then let's learn some of the case studies. First one is the trade and commerce aspect. Let's understand this part of tertiary sector. So trade is essentially what? Buying and selling of the items produced elsewhere, right? And all services in retail and wholesale trading or commerce are specially intended for one basic idea, that is profit, right? When you sell something, you need a profit, right? Unless there is no profit, the business will not run, right? Trade will not happen. So towns and cities where all these work take place is known as what? These are the trading centers. So there may be smaller trading centers at a village level to a big hub of trade at international level in a big city, right? That's where the scale in trading center comes into picture. So trade centers may be divided into rural and urban marketing centers. If you want to clear cut divide into rural sector and urban sector, that way also we can learn it. So first understand what is rural marketing center. This is basically a quasi-urban center, a semi-urban center, which has basically a rural setup. People come, gather, they do the trade and then they go away, right? So the serve as trading centers is the most rudimentary type, where you have bazaars. Remember, in Hindi we say bazaar, haat, right? So these are the local collecting and distributing centers, also known as mandis, right? Sabzi mandi and other mandis that you may have seen, the wholesale markets, right? So these are not urban centers per se, but significant centers for making available the goods and services which are in demand by the local people, by the rural people. If you observe this particular image here, it gives you a sense of a bazaar or a mandi here, right? This is the typical rural marketing center, right? Now look into the seasonal centers, the periodic centers. What are these? Very interesting concept, that there are certain markets which only run in particular time period. They have a frequency of occurrences. It means there is no permanent structure of the market, permanent buildings of the market. Rather, it is irregular market, and it is local periodic market that we say, organized at a given temporal intervals. We also say weekly markets, daily markets, monthly markets, right? And sometimes only festival oriented markets. So heart is one word in rural India which is used. If you have ever seen this kind of heart structure, right? So for example, in Delhi, National Capital Region, what you observe, there is a weekly market system still prevalent, especially in the urban villages of Delhi, right, where the land use is mixed. In urban areas, you have still the village settlements of the erstwhile villages, which are called urban villages. There you will find weekly markets, Som Bazaar, Mangal Bazaar, Buddh Bazaar. If you don't know, you can check on Google web all these bazaars that take place on weekly basis. And remember, there is a very interesting concept of the accumulated demand. It means what? In 1 week in one locality, once this market comes, and for the entire week people are waiting for it. It means what? There is an accumulation of demand for 1 week for that one day in that locality, right? So for example, if there is a Monday market, what happens? From this Monday to the next Monday, there is an accumulation of demand. And then when on the next Monday market comes, everything is sold, right? That's how this accumulation of demand is the logic behind these weekly markets, right? So this weekly or bi-weekly markets are the things that are also there in urban centers, in rural centers, and in mixed, that is we say quasi-urban centers, right? So next is the urban marketing centers. Now observe here, they have widely specialized urban services. When we say urban services means what? They are specialized services in goods, and different kinds of people come from different walks of life. They shop there and then they go away, right? That's how the trading happens in urban areas. So urban centers are basically making what? Manufactured goods, right? So what we do here, not raw materials mostly, but majorly into manufactured products. If you observe, majorly into manufactured products. So that is their markets for labor, housing, semi or finished products. That is the feature of urban markets, right? So services of educational institutions and professionals such as teachers, lawyers, consultants, physicians, dentists, veterinary doctors, these are all available in urban centers generally. If you observe, in rural areas you'll have very few of these services, right? In urban areas you have variety of these services. Take example of coaching market. You must have seen these kind of hoardings and images in your locality, in Delhi, in any other city in India where you have education hub, right? For UPSC exams, for IITG. Remember, there is a series of Quota Factory. If you have not watched, you can watch it there, right? So that talks about a particular city which is only famous for coaching institutes, right? So you'll find these kind of hub, right? This is educational hub. What is this? This is a service, right? So this also happens in urban marketing centers. Now comes to retailers. You must have heard this word, retail market, retail trading. What is this? This is business activity concerned with sale of goods, obviously, to the consumers directly in a smaller scale. It means shops like these, if you have seen, right? We say Kirana shop, right? So these are basically what? These are retail shops, right? Smaller stores devoted to selling of products. So what happens? This kind of retail trading is there in a locality. If you say Residential Welfare Association, RWAs, you'll have several small localities, small vendors who have their permanent houses where they open up shops like these. These are retailers, right? And there are certain non-retail activities as well. For example, street peddling, hand carts, trucks, door-to-door service, mail order, telephone, automatic vending machines, internet services, cafes, right? So these are non-store retailing trading. That also happens. And then comes the wholesale trading of the same. It means in a bulk when you purchase something of one kind of goods in these. So what happens? From wholesale, retailer buys and they then sell it. That's what happens. So there is a difference in rates of the goods as well, right? In bulk, you have an advantage of buying in bulk, and then you become a retailer and sell it at your price, right? Margin of profit you keep for yourself. That is how retail is done. So transport is the next one. This was just the trade and commerce sector. Now look into the transport as a service. Look here, transport is one service which gives you one basic facility which is part of human aspiration, that is mobility. Everybody wants to move. Human beings are mobile creatures, isn't it? So people, material, manufactured goods, all of them are carried from one location to the other through this transport services, right? So if you observe, transport distance can be measured in which ways? 3 ways. Kilometer distance or actual distance of route length. That is one way to measure. Then there is something called time distance. How much time does it take from position A to position B? That is time taken to travel on a particular route. That's also one kind of measuring of a distance. And there is something called cost distance. So how much do you pay for traveling on that particular route? So 3 ways of measuring a transport distance, right? And there are many modes of transport you must have studied in school days, right? So transport network and accessibility is something that you must understand when you are looking into the transport services. So what is this Transport network and accessibility. Understand, accessibility is the access points connected to a particular center. How many ways are there to reach that particular location is the amount of accessibility to that center, right? So it all depends upon few concepts. Now understand these concepts: nodes, links, these numbers that you see in this image. What do you observe here? There are certain things called nodes. What is a node? It's a meeting point of two routes. It can also be a point of origin, a point of destination of any particular town, right? And also every road that joins these two nodes is called a link, right? You must have heard of link roads or simply link. So what is here? If you observe in this diagram, you can understand this entirely is a network, right? The combination of these nodes and links makes an entire network. It's a chain. And how is it? Just observe the A, B, C, D, E, F, these alphabets. These are the nodes which are connected by different links here, right? But what about accessibility? Accessibility is maximum of those centers which have maximum linkages with other nodes. It means the most accessible, if you observe here, is calculation of these numbers will give you, right? This can be studied through graph theory, but here we are not learning through graph theory. We're just understanding the concept of transport network and accessibility as a service. So it all depends upon these network feeders like links and nodes in a given settlement, right? That's how efficient transport network can be there. So factors affecting transport, if you want to look, the very important is size of population. That is the basis, right? So what you observe here, there are 6 important points to consider on routes. If you want to plan a route or learn how the routes are dependent upon which factors, there are several factors. First is the location of these nodes, like cities, towns and villages. Then industrial centers and raw materials, if it is an industrial route, if you have to transport iron ore to the steel plant, right? Then pattern of trade between them, what kind of nature of trade is there, right? Then type of climate also, it all depends, right? Here is very purely geographical factor. In a given climate, in a harsh climate, you will not have much of transportation, very few. In desertic condition, you will find only single road, very few transportation services, right? So climate is also there because it determines the livability of human beings, right? Then funds availability, obviously, because it helps us to overcome the obstacles, right? That's important. And then there is a threshold value of population. Now remember, for any transport service, you must have a threshold value of population. For example, metro city, right? In a metropolis, we have huge populations. In India, if we say, so the metro services that you see coming up in various cities has one threshold value. If you don't know, this is that in one direction at one particular point of time, if 20,000 or more people are moving, then that city has a potential of making a metro. That is what the threshold population means. It means that in one particular point of time, that is suppose 9 a.m. in the morning, if 20,000 people are moving in the same direction, right? It means there is a potential of a metro route to be made. That is what we mean by threshold population, a population which can support that service, right? So this is where it is important here. Now go to the communication. Again, this is another service. We are paying for it, isn't it? We are paying for internet, we are paying for our phone services. So radio, television, and now the internet has taken over the world. We are paying for our newspapers. This is where communication services comes to the quaternary activities, right? So for example, CEO of a MNC is in Copenhagen and at New York, and a medical transcriptionist is at Bangalore. These things are there as services. But what is the common point here? Every one of them is basically a knowledge oriented person giving services of different kinds, from a CEO to a medical transcriptionist to a person who is there in any particular big city, right? So if you observe, these people are working in a service sector which is knowledge oriented. So what is this? It is also part of the quaternary sector and quinary activities. That's where it comes the next level, quaternary and quinary activities, right? So quaternary activities are what? They are involved in the following: the collection, production and dissemination. Remember, CPD, collection, production and dissemination of this information. That is what is important. And quaternary activities center around the research and development. So remember, R&D is the basic idea behind quaternary activities, right? Now, so what is then quinary activities? The top ladder of these tertiary activities, the highest level of decision makers or policy makers, they perform the quinary activities, right? Where the policies are made, where the decisions are taken, right? So subtly they are different from the knowledge-based industry. Why? Because quinary activities are the services that focus on creation, on rearrangement, decision making, interpretation of the ideas, right? And newer technology usage. So this is where we say gold collar professions, people who are involved at the highest levels in decision making in the economic activity. They are called gold collar professionals, right? For example, highly paid skills senior business executive, government officials, research scientists, financial and legal consultants. These people are at the top end of the service sector, right? They are called the part of quinary activities in the economy. So new trends in quinary activities, if you observe, is coming KPOs, that is knowledge process outsourcing. If you have learnt about it, one is called BPO, business process outsourcing, and this is a KPO, which is knowledge process outsourcing. It means that you have knowledgeable people who are there on your phone call, on your services at your doorstep, to help you deal with some kind of thing that is related to the expertise in knowledge, in decision making, in restructuring, in replanning, right? In consultation of that highest level. So the information technology is helping in this outsourcing, that is called KPO, knowledge process outsourcing. And examples, if you want to look here, this is research and development activities, e-learning, business research, intellectual property research, legal profession and banking sector. Everywhere you'll find a KPO happening, right? So sitting in New Delhi, you are talking about the solution to problems in Canada. So that is how the work is done through these KPOs. So this is all about that we have learned in this tertiary sector, quaternary sector and quinary sector of the economy. Basically what we say is the service sector of the economy. So now, when we have learned in details the various aspects of tertiary activities in economy, in the sessions to come, we'll be talking more on different aspects of the economic geography, and also we'll be talking about certain questions and answers in the upcoming videos. So stay tuned, stay safe, all the best wishes.